KL Publications presents Trauma, Transitional Repair and Understanding Mental Awareness by Ryan C. Sanders. Veronica's world felt like it was slipping away. She couldn't deny the constant tension in her marriage to D'Angelo or the awkward growing distance with her children, Elena and Marcus. No matter how much she tried, Veronica couldn't shake the dark cloud that hung over her, casting shadows on every relationship in her life. It was a familiar feeling. Veronica's childhood had been an emotional minefield. Her parents rarely affectionate, often critical and quick to withdraw their love. She learned early on to hide her emotions, protect herself, and build walls. She thought she'd left the past behind, but now the fallout from those scars was wreaking havoc on the family she cherished. D'Angelo was patient, but even he had his limits. He tried to talk to her, to understand, but Veronica shut down, convinced that nobody could truly understand her pain. It seemed easier just to avoid arguments and pretend she was fine, but she wasn't. The reality was that her defenses, the very survival skills she developed as a child, were keeping her trapped in a cycle of hurt and isolation. One evening, after a particularly tense exchange, she caught a glimpse of D'Angelo's face, tired, hurt, and looking as though he was about to give up. He sighed. "Veronica, I can't keep reaching out if you keep pushing me away. I feel like I'm losing you." His words struck her like a hammer to her heart. She hadn't meant to push him away, hadn't meant to create walls that even she couldn't scale. But she couldn't stop herself. That night, alone and unable to sleep, Veronica came across a podcast about complex PTSD by Dr. Pete Walker. She'd saved it weeks ago, and though part of her felt reluctant to delve into her painful past, something urged her to listen. She pressed play, and Dr. Walker's calm voice filled the room. Walker explained complex PTSD as more than just trauma from one event. It was a result of prolonged emotional distress, often in childhood, and it could cause lifelong emotional struggles. He talked about survivors who struggled with self-doubt, shame, and challenges in their relationships. Veronica found herself nodding as he explained how childhood wounds could show up in adulthood, sabotaging intimacy and trust. It felt as though Dr. Walker was speaking directly to her. The 4 F's of trauma response, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, resonated deeply. She realized that she often froze in stressful situations, withdrawing into herself. Her fight response came out in defensiveness, especially when she felt criticized or vulnerable. Dr. Walker's insights were like puzzle pieces falling into place. For the first time, she saw her behavior not as a personal failing, but as survival mechanisms she'd learned long ago. Realizing these patterns, Veronica felt a glimmer of hope. Dr. Walker also spoke of emotional flashbacks, waves of intense feelings triggered by past trauma. Veronica often felt anxious or on edge, especially in moments when D'Angelo tried to discuss their relationship. She began to understand that she wasn't reacting to him, but to her past. In the weeks that followed, Veronica decided to try some of Dr. Walker's healing tools. She wrote down her thoughts wherever she felt overwhelmed, tracing them back to her past experiences. She noticed that her inner critic was loud and unforgiving, echoing the voices of her parents, who had constantly told her she wasn't good enough. Inspired by Dr. Walker's advice, she began to challenge these voices. She started telling herself that she was deserving of love, that she was enough. One evening, she approached D'Angelo, nervous but determined to be vulnerable. "I want to share something with you," she began. She told him about her childhood, her defenses, and the work she started to understand and heal her past. For the first time, she let him in, admitting how it was hard for her to trust and open up. D'Angelo listened. His face softened with every word. "I had no idea," he said, taking her hand. "I wish I'd known sooner. I'm here, Veronica. I'll be here as long as you let me." They held each other in silence, a sense of relief and connection washing over them both. For the first time, Veronica felt understood and accepted. She didn't have to hide her pain anymore. Her journey didn't end there. She continued to practice the techniques Dr. Walker had outlined, especially around self-compassion. Instead of berating herself for her past mistakes, she started treating herself with kindness, learning to forgive herself for the things she could not control. She began to use visualization techniques to reparent herself, imagining the kind of nurturing figures she never had, offering herself comfort and reassurance. As she healed, her relationship with Elaine and Marcus also began to change. She made an effort to listen to them, to be present without judgment. Slowly, they began to open up to her, sensing the change in their mother. She apologized for her past mistakes, for the time she had been distant and overly strict. Her children, initially cautious, eventually warmed up to the new, more open Veronica. Family dinners once filled with tension turned into moments of genuine connection and laughter. In addition, she practiced setting healthy boundaries and asserting herself in a gentle, respectful way. No longer did she feel compelled to control everything around her for a sense of safety. Instead, she learned to trust in herself and her relationships. Her conversations with D'Angelo grew more honest, more grounded, more intimate. One afternoon, as she watched D'Angelo laughing with Elaine and Marcus in the backyard, Veronica felt a deep sense of gratitude. The emotional walls that had once separated her from her family were dissolving. She was healing, and in the process, she was building a life of connection, trust, and love. In time, Veronica also reached out to extended family members, people she had distanced herself from over the years, the ones that done her no wrong. Using the skills Dr. Walker had introduced to her, she set boundaries and created new, healthier relationships that brought her peace and fulfillment. Looking back, she realized that she had moved beyond merely surviving. She had crossed into thriving, experiencing life in a way she hadn't believed possible. Veronica had transitioned her pain into wisdom, her trauma into strength. The journey had not been easy, but every step had been worth it. Her family noticed the change. It was actually happening. She felt it too. Trauma. Transitional repair and understanding mental awareness had become her personal mantra, a reminder of her resilience and growth. She had broken free from the past, building a new life based on self-compassion, trust, and love. In her journey from surviving to thriving, she had not only saved her marriage, but reclaimed her life, rediscovering the joy and beauty that had always been within her reach. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe.